Welcome to the Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast, where we share all things people stuff in leadership. Learn from leaders who have done the hard yards and learn from experience. Hear from expert authors about the latest insights from culture to strategy and messy people dynamics. Get tips and insights from multiple award-winning author and leadership expert herself, Zoe Routh. Now, on with the show. Hi, this is Zoe Routh, your friendly neighborhood leadership expert. I am an intrepid explorer of the leadership landscape. I'm a team navigator. I love to work with teams and team leaders who want to move from being frustrated and stuck in endless conversations going nowhere to high energy, fast flowing, high performers. How'd you like that new spiel? I'm working on it. I've been doing some branding with some colleagues of mine, and we're playing a little bit with the focus on adventure and being a team navigator or like a mountain guide for teams, because that's what I love to do. Well, I have a question for you today, and it's all about the topic for today's show and our main interviewer. Have you ever felt like an imposter at work? Have you ever felt like you're kind of faking it till you make it? Well, my guest today has felt like that, and she is not at all an imposter, and she is the real deal. Her name is Laura Cunningham. She is the General Manager at an IT managed service provider here in Canberra called CentreRED. And I first met Laura a couple of years ago when I was looking to work with some fabulous leaders in my Amplifiers program. And I knew about CentreRED because I knew the founder. The founder worked with me at Outward Bound many moons ago. He was very senior when I first arrived at Outward Bound 25 and a half years ago. And he was head of the IT department and head of staff and training. And he developed his company, CentreRED, when he was just leaving Outward Bound. And he ended up providing IT support services to Outward Bound and then to a lot of other not-for-profits, including the next not-for-profit I went to work with, which was the Australian Rural Leadership Foundation. So I feel like I've known the business for quite some time and known Kent for quite some time. And I was delighted to meet both Laura and Adele, who is the CEO there, who took over leadership and became owners in the company once Kent decided to retire. So this is the story. This is Laura's story about her trajectory from when she first came in to work as a call center support at the organization and is now general manager and co-owner. So without further ado, let's do it. Woohoo! All the way from Canberra, Australia, my fellow Canberran, welcome to the show, Laura Cunningham.
Thank you very much.
I'm giggling. We're both kind of giggling because it's Friday afternoon as we're recording this. And all on my side, I've had like a comedy of errors just getting into the bunker and swapping PowerPoints and cameras. And just like, it's just been a catastrophe of ridiculousness. And here we are. And Laura's been very gracious and patient with me as we get all this stuff sorted. So, inhale center, and we're ready to go. So I've been really looking forward to this interview. I've known you for about a year and a half. I've been a huge admirer of CentreRED and what you do as the COO, Chief Operating Officer there. And I wanted to know a little bit more about your leadership story. So please tell us, how the heck did you end up where you are now from where you started?
Complete fate is, I think,
Complete
the
fate.
best way. Yeah, best way to describe how I got here. So I think, full disclosure, I'm part owner of an IT business and I have no IT qualifications whatsoever. And before working and joining with CentreRED, I had very little to do with technology other than a home computer and a mobile phone.
All right, there's hope for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I joined CentreRED after doing a stint in the public service. I was on maternity leave with my third child and there were funding cuts, unfortunately. And I forget the percentage, but quite a large percentage of the department that I worked for didn't have their contracts renewed. And I think at that point, it's fair to say I felt like the world had ended.
Really?
When I got that call. Yeah, I did. I really did. I loved that job so much. So I was doing quality assurance for an inbound call centre for Department of Health. And it was really rewarding work. So much assistance to people in some of their most vulnerable times. So it was a really rewarding job, and I wasn't ready to leave. I didn't feel like I had finished the work that I had started there. But as fate quite often works, I saw an advertisement for, I forget the exact words for it, but it was, if you've got call centre experience and would like to lead a small team, give this recruiter a call. And so I jumped on straight away and had a talk to the recruiter who was looking after CentreRED and the position. And she said, "Oh my God, you sound perfect. Send me through your resume." And I sent it through, and I was asked to come in, and I had a chat with our now CEO, Adele, and the company's founder, Kent, and it just seemed to work. The job was for a dispatcher, so to dispatch all the help desk tickets that were coming in. So that was 7.5 years ago, I think. And here I am today. Like, I kind of feel like there's so much alignment with what I was trying to achieve at Department of Health, contributing to the community. With the work we do here at CentreRED, about 30% of our client base are not-for-profits, and the work that we do every day has such a big impact, not just on our community and our not-for-profits and for-purpose organisations, but, the last 2 years have really shown us how important IT is to so many people, and that feeling of contribution and just overall assistance to the greater good is absolutely what I feel every day here. It's fantastic.
Oh, that's lovely. And what's interesting about CentreRED, so it's IT support services, managed services in the IT sector for different organizations. And I first came across CentreRED because I knew Kent, because Kent was also working at Outward Bound when I first started there 25 and a half years ago. He was head of staff and training and running the IT department. Like, the poor guy, it's just a crazy job. And then he left and founded CentreRED, and that's sort of how I kept across him too, because the next not-for-profit I went to work at was the Australian Rural Leadership Foundation, and CentreRED was the support IT service provider there too. So occasionally I see him pop in and out. And then I met you and Adele, which is how we've come to be. And the two of you started in Amplifiers, and you are now in your second year at Amplifiers. So that's a little bit of history of how you and I have intersected. Fascinating, though, that you went from the end of the world, I lost this great job, to let's go to a call center, and then you've found the purpose and contribution in that way. And I'm guessing, and you haven't said it, that from the call center response, you learned the ins and outs of the business and somehow started to look after the office management. Is that sort of how you tracked towards being the COO?
So started as dispatcher, and the business was going through, I think, probably its first biggest growth period just as I started. They were changing the way their business model worked, and I sat in that dispatching role for a couple of years and really got to not just learn the operational side of the business, but really get to make some fantastic relationships with our clients as well. And as we grew bigger, I moved into the operations manager role and led the service team within the business. And about just at the end of 2019, Kent came to the leadership team and said he wants to start to transition into retirement effectively. He'd been running the business for, it would have been about 23 or 24 years by then. And he was comfortable with who was leading the business at that point. So he stepped down as CEO in the January of 2020.
Good time to leave, right at the start of a pandemic.
Yeah, I know, right? It was like we wondered if he actually had a crystal ball and he saw what was coming. But yeah, so January 2020, Adele stepped into the CEO role and I stepped into, the general manager role.
Oh, is that? I beg your pardon. So your official title is general manager? I've been calling you the coup forever. General manager, chief operating officer, lady in charge.
Very similar. Yeah.
Righto. So when did you first discover or realize that you were a leader?
I'm not sure that there was a light bulb moment of me saying, that's it, that's what I want to do. I think a lot of things in my childhood and in my life sort of all contributed to where I am today. My mother was a teacher, a fantastic one at that, and my dad was general manager in the commercial baking industry. So growing up, we were never close to our family. It was just my mum, my dad, and my sister. And so I paid a lot of attention to what my parents did. And I guess having leaders in my early childhood was just, I was always around them. Mum and dad were super, super conscious about teaching my sister and I how to be confident and really setting us up to succeed in our careers. And I was always encouraged to join the SRC. You know, we moved schools all the time. So I really did get to...
What's the SRC?
So SRC is it's called a Student Representative Council.
Okay.
Very Australian, but effectively you nominate yourself out of your classroom in primary school or in high school to be the voice of that class for the school. So, my parents always encouraged me to take on those sorts of roles, moving schools to help build relationships. It was super tough every 18 months or 2 years, moving to another town and, leaving everything you'd known for the last few years and starting again. So, it was really encouraged from a very early age. And as I started my career, I was always really goal orientated. And so I started thinking about what I could do or where I wanted to be. And I found a lot of external people actually telling me, oh, you can't do that. You don't know enough about that to do that. Or how are you going to have a family and be a mother and have a career? It's one or the other at that point.
People were saying that to you?
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm a super competitive person as well. And so for me, that just really drove me to prove people wrong. And so as I took on different roles, I was sort of always one step ahead of what I wanted the next role to be. I think I'd seen my ability to manage and be responsible to make certain decisions. And I think that's why I was always very successful in the roles that I had taken on. But it wasn't really until I joined CentreRED and Adele took me under her wing really quickly. She could see here I was, a mother of 3 super young children who's fighting really hard to have a career as well, but was still really young in my management career as well. And I think she really took me under her wing and showed me the difference between management and leadership. So I don't think there was ever a point where I was like, I want to be a leader. I just knew I always wanted to do more. And that feeling of contribution to people's careers was something that passion for it grew as I was given more responsibility within each role. So, big credit has to go to Adele, because I don't think, aside from my parents or my family, anyone has invested so much time and energy into my success as her.
That's a really nice tribute to a really lovely person.
Yeah.
So you said a couple of things I want to pick apart, explore a little bit further. And one of them was, you said Adele was the one who taught you the difference between management and leadership. So in your understanding of that, what is the difference?
I think for me, managers like to tell everyone how important they are, but leaders make everyone else feel like they're the important ones. I think for me that sort of says it in a nutshell. I think leaders are here to serve other people and contribute to their success. It's not all about I get success. I feel a sense of achievement and success from seeing other people succeed around me that I've worked with. So, and I definitely used to take that mindset into some of the roles that I had. I'm a manager and I'm important. and I'd like the world to know about it. But I was super young too, right? Like there was definitely some ego involved in some of the positions I had. So, yeah.
Oh my God, that's so funny. I think I was the opposite. I got into management. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I hope everybody's okay. And I didn't want to tell anybody, really. It's like, yeah, I'm the boss. Oh my God. The other thing you said, which I think is interesting considering what you just said, that, you know, in your younger years when you first started out, you were the manager and you wanted to let everybody else know that you were in charge, etc. And when I first asked you, how did you end up where you were? And you said faking it. So this
No, by fate.
By fate.
Yeah. By fate, yeah. Mind you, like there has been so many times where I've had to fake it till I make it. So...
Well, yeah, okay. So that just changes my whole frame of what you just said. You know, it was fate. It was fated. And so I'm also curious then, when did you fake it till you make it? What do you mean by that? Have you felt like an imposter?
Oh, yes. I think pretty much from day dot, 1st of January 2020, you know, I put my hand up to the board of CentreRED. I was a shareholder at that point, not a part of the board. And I said, you know what, I want to be GM. I think I can do this. You know I've got there's some gaps, and I know I'm young and don't have some experience in some aspects, but I think I can do this. And then they said yes. And then I was like, okay. And then, yeah, first day back from Christmas break in January, it was like, what have I just committed to? And there was really only 6 or 7 weeks of finding my feet in this role. You know, I was so operational in every job before this one. You know, to take the leap from operational to strategic to, such a broader business view that you have to take in this role. I really didn't have a whole lot of time whatsoever to find my feet in that role. And Adele was still trying to find her feet as CEO as well. And then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And I can tell you now, like for a good 18 months after that, I felt like an imposter. I felt like I had to fill Adele's shoes when she was general manager of the business, and that it really didn't matter what I did, I'd never be able to fill her shoes or be as good as her. And yeah, complete imposter syndrome, and I had to grapple with that mentally for such a long time.
So how did you overcome that?
In a really unfortunate way, unfortunately. So in August last year, I got a phone call from Adele. I think it was about 11 o'clock in the morning, and she just let me know about a horrific family event that had happened for her, and that she didn't know when I'd talk to her again.
Wouldn't know when she would talk to you again.
Yeah, she effectively said, I'm out. I don't know what's going to happen. I need you to take over. And it was like, mic drop.
Yeah, no kidding. It's like, what do you mean?
Yeah. I could completely, it was 100% justified what she had to do and why she had to do it. I just never pictured myself taking on the responsibility for this whole company without it being some sort of transition, or without her still around to help guide me. And yeah, it was like, this is it. I'll talk to you when I talk to you next. Obviously, we did actually talk a lot over the coming days, more from a personal perspective, nothing about business whatsoever. But she effectively left the business for, I think it was 6 or 8 weeks. Absolutely, no business talk at all. And she made contact when she wanted to make contact. And then over the course of the next, I think, 3 or 4 months, she slowly transitioned back into the business.
And just so that people know that what we're talking about, she had to leave to look after an injured family member. So that was the
Correct.
circumstances.
Yeah. So her priorities in her life changed. It was not CentreRED, it was her family. And so, how did I discover I wasn't an imposter? It was because I got pushed into the deep end and I literally had to sink or swim. And I swam. Thank God. I think there was a few times I choked on some water while I was swimming, but I swam. I got there. The business continued to grow. We had some amazing results in that period Adele was away. That definitely wasn't, all my success, but I was able to lead the team and the business was still able to run really successfully. And it was actually in one of your immersion sessions for amplifiers, and that's effectively when I said it out loud in public to other people, what was something I achieved that quarter. I recognised that I didn't have to fill someone else's shoes. The shoes that I wore every day were absolutely fine, and that I can lead, and I can lead really well.
I'm getting teary listening to this.
But, it's still a really bittersweet time for me in my life. Someone who is really important to me. I succeeded because someone who is really important to me in not just my business life. Adele is my business partner. She's also a really important friend. And I succeeded because of tragedy that happened in her family. And so that's something I continue to grapple with, is that success through tragedy. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure we can tell a better story than you succeeded at her expense, because I don't think you succeeded at her expense at all.
No, not at her expense. It just, I probably wouldn't have gotten that opportunity if that hadn't have happened at that point. And I think it really was the defining moment for me to recognise I wasn't an imposter. And that didn't happen. It's not like I just woke up a couple of days after. It was like, no, I'm not an imposter. It took a lot of help from other people external to the business that I called upon in those first few days to be like, how do I do this? What do I do? Who helped me to recognise that, hey, we've just had this conversation and here's some decisions you're grappling with. You've actually gotten to those decisions yourself. So I spent a lot of time on the phone with amazing guy called Dan Williams. I think, Zoe, you might know him. He is a EOS implementer. So Dan was actually our original facilitator for EOS. So he knew our business really well.
What does EOS stand for?
Entrepreneurial Operating System. So it's a business platform, effectively, that you use to help get traction on your business. So he was our original implementer and just had a really trusting relationship with him. And he's someone you can be super vulnerable with. And he's really good at helping you recognise your ability, and you are who you are, and you're great at being who you are. And so, there were so many conversations with Dan. And he'd say to me, I haven't told you these decisions. You've come to them yourself. All I'm doing is validating what your gut's telling you, So he really helped me to understand and believe, have that confidence that I wasn't an imposter. I think you and I had a few conversations before that point where I'd said that to you as well, and you would always laugh. So you were not an imposter. So it was a journey to get there, that's for sure.
It does absolutely sound like a journey. So some of the things that you said here, right? So the difference between management and leadership, going from self-focused to other-focused, going from operational to strategic, and having strategic being whole of organizational awareness and carriage for decisions that affect the whole organization. When you were dumped in it, I should say, through circumstance where you were primarily became the chief decision maker, did you find that you had gaps in knowledge? Because it sounds like you were road testing your decision-making skills and those came up trumps. Were there things that you, like in terms of going from operational to strategic, were there gaps in knowledge that you had to fill? Or did you have to research and investigate other areas of the business that you didn't know so well? So how did you bridge that particular gap?
Yeah, definitely in that transition from operations manager to general manager, stacks of gaps, particularly around the financial aspects of the business, budgeting, tax, like all of those financial responsibilities. How did I bridge the gap? I asked so many questions, and I guess one of the benefits of going into lockdown in that May was that I had everything stopped. Everything in my personal life stopped. All the running around and being torn in a million different directions from family and work really just stopped. And it actually gave me a really good opportunity to immerse myself in the business and figure all this stuff out, without necessarily the noise of the day to day from being in the office. So it was a really steep learning curve, because not only was I trying to learn the business and fill those gaps, but we were trying to work remotely for the first time. We were trying to get 100 and something other organisations to be able to work remotely at the same time. We were working with organisations who were responsible for all the testing clinics and vaccination clinics. So, we was trying to scale our own business as well as learn our own business. Adele and I were very much trying to learn our new positions. So, lots of gaps. I guess, though, it was a really safe environment to have some knowledge gaps within this business. So at that point, it was all hands on deck. And if someone else, needed to step up to fill a role or to do a particular task, we all did it within the leadership team. So, that's pretty much how I did that one.
I love it. So, were there any particular skills or attitudes that carried you through from an operational mindset, a management mindset, into a strategic one? Like, were there some meta skills, some superpowers, if you like, that you took with you?
Good question. Reflection's a hard one for me, to sort of look back and analyse, what am I good at? What am I not good at? I think I've always been one who has just wanted to invest and to serve other people. And so it's never really mattered what role I've sat in. I've always had a genuine care for people around me, and I ride such a high from other people's success. The difference in sort of those operational roles to the role I'm in now is that you can have a much bigger impact on how much you can invest in people individually and how much you can contribute to their success and their development. So I'm not sure if genuine care and passion for people is a skill, but I think that's probably always been a consistent for a long time.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's a lovely superpower and torch to bear. Wonderful. So I want to talk about the gender issue, right? So you're in IT. The IT sector is notorious for being not female dominated, but male dominated. And that's not just in the tech space. It's actually sort of in terms of the implementation state. It's definitely in the leadership space as well. So how is it? Well, first of all, let's point out you've got a female CEO and a female general manager of a fairly substantial IT company in Canberra. Has gender been an issue for either of you, do you think, in this particular environment?
I think yes and no. I think within this business, both Adele and I have fallen into the typical gender tasks that occur within businesses and felt the responsibility to take on particular tasks that are always assumed females take on.
Like what? I'm curious about that.
Taking minutes, organising calendars, taking
Really?
on pseudo PA roles for people. Yeah, just real officey based tasks. I think, though, CentreRED's been a really safe business for us both to be women and mothers and successful leaders as well. I think Adele probably paved that path before I came along and really set the example and showed that you can be a person first and provide for yourself and fill your personal buckets, and then be a mum, and then be a great employee and have career goals and actually reach those career goals. So we're definitely a topic of conversation within the industry. The fact that we are two females owning an IT business. We don't just lead the business, we are 2 of 3 owners within the business now. And certainly, you know, a lot of the feedback is it's really refreshing seeing a business just have a different focus, an IT business with a different focus. We both come from people background, not technology. And so, yes, technology is a huge part of our business, but our focus is on our people. And I think that makes a really big difference in some of the decisions we make as business owners and leaders, and the tone that we bring to the leadership team as well. And so it's really empowering to know that we are creating change in an industry and showing people that you can care about people and genuinely invest in them, no matter what the business you're in. It doesn't matter what the business actually does. As long as you understand people, then you can be successful at leading that business.
Yeah. And I love how that's not at all a gender statement.
No, not at all. Not at all. I think we're making it easier for males to have that view and be comfortable with that view. You know, it's not a gender statement, but I think it empowers men just as much as it empowers women. And that's really important.
That is really important. I love that. That was a really powerful statement and a fabulous observation. Do you see the gender balance changing at all in your own particular business? Are there more female techs coming through now?
Yeah, we're growing really quickly. So it's harder to keep, as we grow, you know, that base number's growing, so it's harder to get that percentage, you know, up high. But I think we're sitting at about 27 or 28% of our business are females. 50% of our leadership team are females. So that is something we are so incredibly proud of, that we have that gender balance at the leadership level, and supporting women who are trying to get into this industry is very much a focus for us. It can be really challenging for women in this industry, particularly as technicians or engineers or, you know, people doing help desk, to balance those responsibilities with work and home. So we're very much supportive of that. And we encourage work-life balance as much as we can, and really make sure that regardless of what gender you are, if you have family commitments, we want you to embrace those. You know, we want to be supportive of those as much as possible, because I think for Adele and I, much earlier on in our careers when we were young mums, if we had had that, that would have made such a big difference for us in our careers.
Made a difference how, do you think?
Just the pressure and the stress. You know, I can't talk necessarily for Adele, but I had 3 kids in 3 years.
Oh my God.
And
break out the gin.
And working full time.
Oh my God.
You know, I had a couple months off with each child because of the financial commitments at home, and I still wanted to have a career. You know, I didn't want to have to stop working or put a pause button on my career because I was also choosing to be a mum. And the pressure that came with that was just so substantial. And there were days when I questioned whether I'd made the right decision and whether or not my career was worth it, for the ways I used to get pulled in so many different directions, particularly when the kids were really little. You know, I would be going to work a full day with like 1 or 2 hours sleep because the kids had tag teamed me during the night. Mm. That was hard.
Oh, yeah.
So I think if someone had just said to me, Laura, it's okay if you're 5 minutes late or you're 10 minutes late, or if one of the kids is having a bad day, And if you want to go and take an extra 5 minutes at lunch to just take a breath and enjoy some you time, it just would have made such a difference to my mental state at the time.
So the pressure you felt was from work, that you needed to absolutely, like, it was as if there was no children and you could be there like from 8 till 6 and carry on, basically. Is that the pressure you're talking about?
Yeah, pretty much. Yep. And I certainly wasn't asking to be treated differently. Sometimes I felt like the bar was put even higher and that I had to work even harder to prove myself. In the workforce. Because
they were expecting you to fall apart or ditch out or something because you were a mum?
Yeah. It was like, there weren't a lot of mothers in the workplaces where I was working, and certainly not women in management roles or leadership roles. And here I was trying to have a young family and still progress my career. It's like, well, we're going to raise the bar higher so that you pick. It's one or the other. You can't have your cake and eat it too, effectively. And so, like I said earlier, when people say you can't, Laura, we don't think you can do that. Well, bring it on. Let me prove you otherwise.
Yeah. And there would have been men in management who had little kids as well, and they didn't experience the same pressure.
No, because they also didn't. When I first became a mother, that balance of caregiver at home still very much sat with women. And my husband worked hard for our family, and he was our main income earner. And so it hurt us more if he stayed home or if he took on more of the workplace responsibilities, of the home responsibilities than I did. So, yep, there were definitely men in leadership and management roles where I was. And yes, they had family responsibilities, but it wasn't to take care, of the house. It wasn't to be the main carer for their children. Their partners did that.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
So you were competing against people who had more help, essentially.
Yeah, I think who just had less demands.
That's probably a better way to say it.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Oh, yeah, it's still an issue, and we haven't resolved it as a society of how we actually allow people to be parents, male or female, and pursue careers. And I think the more that we experiment, the easier it's going to get. And it's great to see that you and Adele are experimenting it and leading that and supporting young families as well as humans in their careers in providing services to other organizations. So we'll go to my end question, I guess. And, you've got so much skill and experience and so on. Do you have like a key piece of advice or tip for people listening who are looking to build their own careers and they want to move into leadership positions and maybe balking a little bit at it?
I think it's about understanding why you want to lead people. And if it's for a title, then you're probably getting into it for the wrong thing or for the wrong reasons. I think when people feel cared for and people feel you genuinely are invested in them, they will share so much with you and they will give their all. And there's just this wonderful mutual respect that we're all here for each other. I think when people feel loved and supported and cared for, you gain their trust. And so much can be achieved. And you can empower so many people by giving that to them. So really understand why you want to be a leader and work on those really powerful relationships.
Beautiful. I think that's a lovely way to finish the interview. Laura, thank you for being such a heart-centered leader and sharing all the ins and outs and ups and downs of your trajectory and experience so far. I can't wait to see what happens next. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Zoe.
Oh, wow. It was a shame that the interview ended. I was just so enjoying the conversation with Laura about her experiences as a leader and as a mother and as a human, and her philosophy and approach to leadership and being in service to others. I think she has a wonderful philosophy, and you can really feel it, can't you, just listening to her story about how much delight she gets in seeing the success of others, and it's completely genuine. And I think that's a rare thing. I think many of us have to work hard at taking thrill from other people's success, and it's not something that occurs naturally to many. And I think Laura models that beautifully. So plenty to take away from in this conversation. I think if we could all think a little bit more about others, then we'll be doing our leadership and the people that we lead a huge service indeed. So with that thought in mind, maybe there's something you can do for yourself in service to others, and maybe that's joining Amplifiers. Amplifiers is our advanced leadership training program for seasoned leaders, CEOs, general managers, managing directors, and senior executives. It's focused on really honing the advanced leadership skills of leading change, leading culture, leading strategy, and leading performance in the company of like-minded leaders who are from a whole bunch of different sectors. And we gather quarterly in person in Canberra, and we also have a virtual group. In between times, there are webcasts, there's a whole online support, foundational programs that can give you the detail and background and grounding in those particular leadership skills. And it's a place where you can go, where you can be a human, then be a leader, and connect with other humans that are having a go as well and want to be in service to create bigger and better impact in their businesses and for the people that they serve and the people that they lead. And that sounds like you. And if you want to step it up a little bit, join us. Find out more. Go to zoerouth.com, click on programs, and click on Amplifiers, and there's some information there. Or you can reach out to me at zoe@zoerouth.com, or find me on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. By the time this episode comes out, I should be well and truly on my Lara Pinta walk. So Lara Pinta is a 232-kilometer walk east of Alice Springs in the desert, which is the center of Australia. And I've been looking forward to doing this walk for a couple of years. It was meant to be a 50th birthday present at the beginning of the pandemic. It got postponed twice. So that'll tell you, A, how old I am, and B, how long I've been waiting to do this trip. So fingers crossed I'm there and soaking up the desert experience. And I can't wait to come back and share the highlights with you. In the meantime, live well, lead well.
You've been listening to the Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast with leadership expert Zoe Routh. For more about people stuff and to contact Zoe, go to zoerouth.com.